I sent him a text. I said we rented the island for a couple hours.
Yeah, well done. This is fantastic, this location right here. Oh my gosh.
Cool.
Did you plan on doing 4 years and getting out?
That was the plan. I was like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna get my training, I'm gonna get some experience, and I'm gonna get out. And I'm gonna have a good job skill that the military paid.
How many years were you in?
I ended up doing 8 total.
8?
Yeah. I did 4. I re-enlisted because it was what had happened was I thought, I went off to school, finished boot camp, and I went to Denver, Colorado to AIT, so tech school. So I was there for a year. So really expensive school. It was a hard school to work on medical equipment, so biomedical engineering. And I just knew, man, you send somebody to school for that long, of course you're going to send them to the hospital to work on hospital equipment. They sent me to the 1st Infantry Division.
Really?
And even when I got my orders, it was like, hey, you're going to Fort Riley, Kansas, which Lord knows I didn't want to go there, but I'm like, cool, I'm going to go to the hospital at Fort Riley. Sent me to the replacement battalion. And I was like, hey, when do I go to the hospital? And they just laughed at me. They're like, no, you're going up on Custer Hill. I'm like, what's that? They're like, that's division. I'm like, why are they going to send me to infantry division? Well, there's a slot in division for a biomed guy, believe it or not. And they pretty much immediately cross-trained me. So I was trained as a medic, trained to take care of the trucks and the Humvees, and our ambulances were armored personnel carriers and semi-armored Humvees. I'm like, what the hell is this, And they're like, well, we need medics, and you also have the skill set of being able to fix any equipment that we have. So, it eventually made sense.
So what was that like? Tell me about the ramp up.
I remember I heard on the radio that the division had been put on alert. And I was like, oh, shit. So I was headed out on a 4-day pass, and I pulled off the interstate, called my squad leader, and I was like, hey, do I need to come back? I heard on the radio that we were alerted. It's long before cell phones and, instant communication. And they're like, no, enjoy your weekend. It's the last one you're gonna get. And so this is 1990, late summer. Well, let's see, SHIELD kicked off in August, so this is September, October that we got alerted. And so the ramp up, dude, it was really chaotic, right? Because nobody had any experience. There was we had a few Vietnam guys, but mostly it was nobody with any
Combat
experience, or deploying. I'm like, all right, so here we're going to Iraq, or we're going to Saudi Arabia. How's all our shit gonna get there? How's all our equipment gonna get from Kansas in any timely manner to Saudi Arabia? And by the way, it's all painted green, so it's got to get painted. So we had to deal with getting everything painted, desert tan. We had to get all uniforms issued, desert shit. And then we rail loaded all the equipment. So all the trucks and everything just got loaded on trains. And I was like, wow, who's gonna do that?
You're looking at them.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know anything about loading a train. So we go out, and they taught you how to chain down, how many chains, this size, this weight vehicle needed, and we loaded the trains. Trains took everything to Houston, and they were unloaded. We had another crew in Houston to put them on the boats. And so then we waited, and we just waited our turn to ship out after that. And so all we did was train after that. Go to the range, go to the range, go to the range, go to the gas chamber, make sure everything worked, because there was a real threat.
So when you landed in country, did you feel like you were prepared?
No. And the thing was, nobody really knew what to expect. We were going in, and SHIELD at the time, so we're defending. We're there in case Iraq invades Saudi Arabia. They had already invaded Kuwait, so that was a mess. And so nothing had really started. We were just there. We drew a line in the sand, and we're putting our chess pieces in place. And I remember flying in. It's like a 24-hour flight. We were on it was all like a generic 747.
Oh, really?
So we go to this little bitty airfield in Kansas, and the plane's sitting there, not a marking on it. They didn't even have a tail marking. It was just pure white. And it was so 747, but it was a passenger equipped. But we got all your gear, your weapon, and so all you had was that and your ruck. So they palletized the rucksacks, but you got all your gear and your weapon on the plane, and your helmet. And you're on the plane for 24 hours. Didn't get off plane. We stopped to refuel. Didn't get off plane. So I mean, I've been to Paris. I looked out the window. They're like, "Yep, we're in Paris. Nobody's getting off the plane for nothing."
Wow.
And because they wouldn't let us in the airport. They let us in JFK. We got off the plane at JFK. It was the middle of the night. Terminal was closed, but they let us off, and we just sat like in front of closed storefronts and waited while they fueled. And then in Paris, they wouldn't let us off. And then we landed in Saudi Arabia, not at an airport. It was just an airfield in the middle of nowhere. Marched with all your crap, middle of the night, so it's dark. All you know is now we're here. They march us to weird Saudi Arabian buses and load up, and then you're on a bus, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. I think we flew into Riyadh, and we were on the bus the rest of the night until we got into Dhahran, like really early in the morning. And everything's like, oh, what's the word? Every single thing you look at is new, right? Nobody knows what to expect. Nobody knows what's going on, and you're kind of just like we were talking. It's straight up hurry up and wait, and then once you got something to do, it's all right. You're quiet and done. Go, go, go. And they put us in. They had like these apartments. They're the size of these condos, right? Never been lived in. They had been built for the Bedouins by the country. So they were trying to get these desert people to move into these apartments. And they were really nice. So they packed us in these apartments. And so like we were early on, they're known as Khobar Towers. Later they got bombed a couple times, not while we were there. And so we just, you made your little spot on the floor with your sleeping bag and your shit and your belongings. I'm trying to do better. And then you waited for the rest of your gear to come in. So you eat, PT, train, and wait. That was the days. And we might have been there 10 days. And then we moved, when our ship came in to the port, we moved out to the port. There was giant warehouses full of GIs just stacked up. You had a cot, your duffel bags, cot, and then it was like that, this whole big ass warehouses. And so we unloaded our stuff off the ships. As soon as they would crane one off, all right, somebody jumps in that Humvee, take it, and then you're trying to marry up that with doors if they had come in yet, or the other parts, until you had enough guys ready, and then it was poof off to the desert.
Really?
And it was a straight unknown. As soon as you had enough vehicles for a convoy, we would head out into the desert. I remember once we're in the desert, right? So we're here, and we're just same thing, training and waiting, learning how to survive, right? You think about it, we got some tents and some trucks, some pea shooters, M16. We're not a combat arms unit. We're a medical unit. Well, let's think back to basics. We got no bathrooms, we got no latrines, we got no showers, we got no laundry facilities, we got nothing. Our food's in a bag. How long are we gonna be out here? What's gonna happen, and how do you survive? And so initially it's like, all right, a I'm gonna try to find a spot with a little privacy and dig a hole and take care of business. And eventually, eventually they brought in, these little wooden 4-seat latrines that had oil barrels on the bottom of them. They're like in quarters, about like this big. So you're, 4 wide. So you make, you pick who you go to the bathroom with, right? You got dudes, man. If
Yeah.
you eat at the same time, then you can go to the bathroom at the same times. I mean, it's just what it is. So you got your dudes, it's just time. All right, you guys ready? You ready? All right, let's go. And after the morning, after you eat and the sun comes up and you're done with like the early morning guard stuff, well, that waste has to be taken care of. So you take whoever draws that, latrine duty that day, you take all those barrels and pour them together and you add some diesel and some gas.
And you burn it.
And you burn it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
if your job is to burn waste, that's your job that day. You tend
man.
those burning buckets of poo.
Oh,
And I can't say it, I'll probably bleep it, but that was shit burning duty. I mean, that was the detail. Hey, you're on shit burning today. And you got trash. We burned that. You burned everything. But literally, it would take 5 hours for it to burn down, and you just keep stirring it while it's burning.
oh,
You stir that bucket and stir that bucket, and then you wait. So obviously, that's a very memorable part,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah, I
field
remember that.
sanitation. You can't forget this. You can't forget the smell of burning waste and diesel. To this day, I hate the smell of just diesel. Period. Burning a diesel vehicle, I can't stand it. I had a lot of bottled up anger, and I really didn't know why. And I didn't think about it a whole lot. I channeled it to function in the prison system. I'm like, it's kind of good to be angry. It's kind of good to be overly alert. It's kind of good to be hyper vigilant. This suits me well for my environment. And it was a few years after I moved to Tampa, and I was working in the VA, and there was a retired Navy chief took me under his wing, and he had been a corpsman in the Navy and a Vietnam vet, and he took a liking to me. He looked like Santa Claus on crack, straight up. Just kind of to paint the picture physically of the guy, big guy, and in his 70s now. Could have retired and was working, I think, just for something to do. But he really took me under his wing, and he asked me about it. He's like, "So you ever deploy?" And I was like, "Yeah." And kind of, "You ever see combat?" And I was like, "Yeah." "Well, you got PTSD?" He just straight up asked me, and this is 2005 maybe. It still wasn't talked about a whole lot, and it was still looked at kind of, like the weak guys. It wasn't well understood, and it certainly wasn't normalized. And I was like, "No, man." And he asked me, "What'd you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I ended up mostly working as a medic, in division." And so then he started asking me about relationships problems and anger issues, and, the hyper vigilance. And I was like, "Well, yeah. So?" And he's like, "Man, that's PTSD." And I was like, "Man, screw you, dude. I'm fine. I'm fine. There ain't nothing wrong with me." And at the time, I hadn't really had any health issues. I'm like, there ain't nothing wrong with me, dude. I'm good. I appreciate you looking out for me, but I'm good. So then I started researching it and reading about PTSD and looking in the mirror and kind of saying, "Damn, maybe that is why I'm so angry. Maybe that is why I have such an abrasive at times personality, why I'm a little aggressive."